Good morning, everybody. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Council is conducting this meeting in person and via conference call in accordance with the Municipal Government Act, Section 199. Council chambers is open for public attendance. However, councillors and members of the public may still join meetings remotely using our current teleconference process. If you've submitted a comment request, the chair will call on you at the appropriate time. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and may be uploaded to our website and or social media to eliminate background noise. Please mute your phone during the meeting. We also ask all attendees to mute their devices to reduce disruptions to the meeting. Everyone has a right to be present at council and council committee meetings. Any attendees that are considered disruptive to the progression of this meeting may be removed at the discretion of the chair as per the MGA Section 198. We thank you for your cooperation and understanding. Does anybody have any additions or changes to the agenda? Yes, Councillor Larson.
I'd like to move that the Mike Cosell Code of Conduct agenda item be moved to the public portion of the meeting. This matters about me, and I believe that I have that right. There is nothing that can come out of this that I would be uncomfortable having the public and or municipal affairs aware of. What I'm being accused of, attending a Wheatland Regional Partnership meeting as a ratepayer and not as a councillor, which is reflected in the minutes of the meeting where I had no voice or vote, is not something that should be hidden from the public. The investigator has refused on more than one occasion to provide his qualifications as an investigator, and the public has a right to know this. I have this refusal both in writing and verbally to prove this. The investigation is complete, so no new information will be presented. The ratepayers of Wheatland County deserve to know what is going on. I'm willing to have this discussed in public, and unless some councillors don't want the public to know what is happening, there's no reason to have this matter in camera.
Thank you, Councillor Larson. There's just a question to administration. So Councillor Larson moved to move that into open session. Should we address that as a distinct motion and then address the agenda?
I would say that council should address each agenda item one by one in this matter.
Okay. So there's a motion on the floor regarding moving agenda item under closed section, FOIP Act Section 16, or sorry, FOIP Act Section 24 to open session. Councillor Larson has moved. Questions or discussion? Deputy Reeve Claassen.
Thank you. I honestly think we should be in camera first, and if there's stuff that needs to be released after the fact, we can agree to do that. That's been the standard procedure, so I'd like to stay that way.
Councillor Kester, then Councillor Larson.
I think that, yep, it's on. Usually we meet in public, and if something comes up that goes in camera, then we move into camera. So I would say we stay in public until something comes up that deserves to go into camera. Discussing it beforehand in camera to see if it goes into public, I think is backwards.
Councillor Larson.
Can Councillor Claassen provide his reasoning?
Deputy Reeve Claassen.
For sure, we hired an investigator to provide us a report, and the previous times we've been through this, that report has always gone to us in camera in case there's anything else that we're not aware of. So I'd like to stay with that procedure.
And since I'm the one that's the subject of this, I believe I have the right to have it in public. So I don't see that you've put a reason forward.
Question to administration from our procedure bylaw and our code of conduct bylaw. And recognizing that there is a FOIP section specified on the agenda. Any advice from administration?
Yes, so through the Reeve. So bylaw 2022-05, which has been rescinded for the new bylaw, both of those bylaws have provisions in it that the report itself would be presented during an in-camera session and would be distributed to council during an in-camera session. So that's in the bylaw itself. The difference between the new bylaw and the old bylaw is that under 2205, that report remained confidential. Under the new bylaw, that report would be published. So those are the two main differences under that bylaw. So the process always has been to, if there has been a code of conduct complaint, to present the findings in camera, and then council will deliberate in an open session. So council can obviously choose whatever they like to do, but that's just been the standard procedure.
Any other questions or discussion? All in favor? Opposed? The motion was to move the presentation from the investigator into open session. Opposed? Motion is defeated. Any other additions or changes to the agenda?
Yeah, I'd like to carry on or increase the, we had a case of vehicle vandalism. And what is the county's response going to be to that vehicle vandalism? And I don't believe there's been a follow-up. That might be with administration, but if there isn't anything with administration, then I would like to put that onto the menu or onto the agenda and have a discussion about that.
Can you put that under 2.31? We can put that under agenda item 2.31. We also have an addition of the 2022 annual report. We'll put that on agenda item 2.32. And then I'd also add an addition for council to consider letters to our firefighters in appreciation for their service in the Central and Northern Alberta fires. We'll put that under 2.33. Any other additions or changes? A motion to approve the amended agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Eichert. Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. We have the minutes from the regular council meeting of May 16th. Any errors or omissions?
If there's none, I'll move the minutes to be approved.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. We'll move to agenda item 2.11, bylaw reading for a land redesignation. Good morning.
Good morning, Council. Taylor Feltz here with the county's Planning and Development Services team to present bylaw 2023-06 for council's consideration of first reading and to request that council schedule a public hearing on July 4th. The application proposes to redesignate the subject lot from the Hamlet Commercial District to the Hamlet Mixed Use District in order to facilitate the development of an existing dwelling into a multi-use building. And this will accommodate commercial uses on the main floor and residential uses on the upper floor. The subject lot is located at 230 Martin Avenue in the hamlet of Rosebud. Neighbors who received the circulation notice reached out in support of the proposal and described the applicant as a passionate train enthusiast, which ties directly into the applicant's long-term proposal, which is to display model trains for public viewing with supporting commercial uses on the main floor, and then to have a residential component that'll include a secondary suite for short and long-term accommodations on the upper floor. Redesignating the lot is required as a mixed-use building is not a listed use in the Hamlet Commercial District, but is a discretionary use in the Hamlet Mixed-Use District. The subject lands are located within the Rosebud Area Structure Plan and within an area that the ASP considers suitable for mixed-use development. And there's many existing neighboring examples of mixed-use developments in this area along Main Street and Martin Avenue. The proposal aligns with the municipal development plan policies for tourism and community-oriented commercial development. Several policies, though, however, in the ASP do require redesignation applications for mixed uses to include environmental site assessments and stormwater management plans in support of the proposal. These studies are used to identify prevent potential environmental impacts that the new development may have on the receiving environment. And in this case, administration feels that there'd be little benefit to the applicant undertaking these studies, as the application is not proposing any new construction on the lot, but rather the adaptive reuse of the existing dwelling. And as such, the impacts the development will have on the lot are expected to be minimal. And with that, administration again is making the recommendation that council grant first reading of bylaw 2023-06 and that a public hearing be scheduled on July 4th. And that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Council's wishes.
I'll move first reading, bylaw 2023-06.
Thank you, Councillor Kester. Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried.
I'll move that a public hearing for bylaw 2023-06 be scheduled for July 4th, 2023 at 9 a.m. The Wheatland County Council chambers.
Thank you, Councillor Brigger. Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. We'll move to agenda item 2.12.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of council, Chris from administration. I'm here this morning to present bylaw 2023-15, which is a special events bylaw. This has been brought forward a couple times in committee of the whole, and I'm bringing forward today hopefully a decent bylaw that would to be consideration. So what we're finding is that special events are being held on public and private property. We don't have a lot of regulation for them other than what we have in place right now is the extended dance bylaw, which is done in 2002. It is designed specifically for extended dance parties, formerly known as raves. So therefore, it really didn't qualify for other events, but we did use it for it. So what we're trying to do here is to make sure that anybody who's having an event within Wheatland County has all of the things they need in place. As like example, their permits, liquor licenses, insurance, permission from landowners, and any other items that we consider to be important for these people to hold their events. The idea behind the bylaw isn't to put up a barrier from organizations and groups to hold events. Again, the idea is to just provide a checklist for organizers to make sure that they're providing a safe function happening within the county. And then it looks good on the county to make sure that if we're having members of the public attending events within the county, that they know that events are being done in a safe manner and have been looked at and the proper authorities and permits are in place. Some of the things that we did add based on the committee of the whole meeting was a definition of a venue. We made the venue to encompass an entire property, not just specific buildings. We better defined the owner, a public place, and defined and expand the definition of special events. We also put in our license applications to ensure that any application that comes through for a parcel has permission from the landowner written. And if there's multiple landowners, that all landowners are aware of the event to be happening on their property. And addressing venues who are trying to avoid redesignation and development permits from holding special events within the county. It would be, this would not be able to be utilized by them on a permanent basis kind of thing. And we put in special Schedule A to have specified penalties for non-compliance under the bylaw. So that concludes my presentation and I'm open for any questions.
Any questions regarding the proposed bylaw? Councillor Laverson.
So just to help me understand this, so if the Dallam Community Association, for example, wanted to have a picnic at the playground camp kitchen area, then they would have to get all these permits?
No, they would not. It was put in here to, we've said 200 or more people is the
Oh, okay.
threshold we've put. Also in our exemptions, we have family reunions, weddings or funerals, events for which development permit has been issued, and farmers markets. So the Dallin Community Association already has a development permit to hold events in there. They wouldn't require it.
Okay.
Any other questions?
How would Rosebud's 5 minutes of fame, how would that?
They're already doing the things that are required. This would just mean an extra check and a checkbox. They've already made their application for the noise bylaw exemption. So this would just make sure that when they come through that we've got the proper barricades, we've got everything in place so they can do it. And again, these are no fee. They're just a checklist to make sure that everybody's documented.
So I'm thinking staff would just up and do it for them, or make sure it's when they're applying that.
I don't know necessarily think that staff would make the application. When the organizers approach, it would then come to staff. Staff would circulate to the different departments that would apply. So for example, protective services, for security and such, operations for road closures, and if there's planning and development, if there was any requirement for building permits or temporary permits for structures and stuff like that. And then if we come back with anything that is required, then we communicate that to the organizers, and then they bring that back with what they're planning on doing to mitigate or to solve these issues that have come up.
So I'm thinking the first year staff would make them aware of it.
Absolutely. Yeah, one of the also thing is, like, I don't believe our intention is to come down hard on everyone and everything. It's just to have a mechanism in place for if there's large scale events happening that have multiple people, and just to ensure that safety is our paramount feature. We want to make sure everybody's safe that are attending events.
Okay.
Any other questions? Councillor Eichert.
So I'm reading through the bylaws. So Schedule A, the penalties, is that in this bylaw?
Yes, it is.
So there are certain things government should and should not be doing, but so if I have an event that has, that I figure there's going to be 201 people through, I can actually get fined for failing to have drinking water, free drinking water, whereupon part of my deal might be I have food trucks on the deal, and they're there. I'm charging them money to service the thing, and I have to give away free drinking water. I have to give away free earplugs. Like there has to be a point where if I'm going to an event that I have to assume some responsibility for going through to that event. Anybody that asks me, I'm going to tell them 199 people. It's no different than when you're doing doing fire code on a public building. You never ever put 300 people capacity. It's always 299. Why? Because you don't, the amount of stuff you don't have to do when you don't reach that threshold. I mean, I sort of understand a little bit what's going on, but people have to have, if somebody is wants to be an events organizer and wants to make a living doing events, most of this stuff is in his best interest to do it himself. It's not on our interest to have staff running around making sure that he's doing this kind of stuff. I mean, there's got to be something, but some of these, like, at the end of the event, failure to report the attendance, that's a fine. That could be a finable event. Like, what are we doing here? We're just making work for county employees. And we're also making it very difficult if you're an event organizer to make sure you've got all your T's and crossed and your I's dotted, because you sit down there and go, well, okay, oh, did I fail to post a license? And when did I post license in the right spot and all this kind of stuff? I mean, I understand the checklist thing, and that's fine. If we put something up on the website, this is what you should and shouldn't do but making a bylaw and then having maximum and minimum penalties for it, I'm totally against that kind of stuff.
Through the chair, if I may, fines are always discretionary. I'm can't anticipate, using the example of 201 people, I can't anticipate fines being issued. And as far as the conditions, a lot of these are already mandated by the province and provincial law. And so therefore the organizers have to get them anyways. And all we're asking is just a checklist so we know. It'd be horrible to have something happen where an event happened and we had multiple injuries or fatalities or something like that, and the county wasn't aware of it. And we did nothing to make sure that it was safe. It would not look good on the county at all. It would be on the organizers, obviously, for their insurance and their responsibility. However, the question could be rising back to us is why didn't we stop it or control it? And that's what our purpose is. It's not to stop, it's not to hinder, it's to help provide a safe event. I don't anticipate us denying them. Again, you're correct about the 199 we've had in the past. Because the old, the current bylaw, the extended dance event, has 250 as the minimum, we've had people sell 249 tickets to them just so they can avoid this stuff. So it's not dissimilar to what other municipalities are doing as well. Some are more extreme than what we're proposing. Some are less restrictive than what we're proposing. But obviously, I'll deal with what council's wishes are.
Councillor Laprise.
So I was just noticing that I think, Councillor Eichert, you might be looking at Schedule A for bylaw 2002.
Right, but it continues.
So, no, so our new,
We'd be
new
repealing
bylaw
it.
would have fewer.
I was trying to find where you have to report attendance and stuff.
Yeah, that was on the old one. That's not a requirement of the new bylaw.
So the penalties are on page, I think.
51.
Yeah. And I didn't see that you have to report attendance after the event. I was just reviewing it again. So there is a requirement within the new bylaw to provide potable water. I'm assuming that's a public health requirement. So this bylaw would repeal that whole page 42, like that would no longer apply. So it is substantially simplified. I do agree with a lot of what you're saying, Councillor Eichert, but our role is also complex in that we have to balance the impact of activities within Wheatland County and that the impact of those activities on adjacent landowners. And we have had events where there are significant negative impacts to adjacent landowners and risks that maybe are not being addressed appropriately, fire risk, for example. Councillor Bigger and I dealt with a lot of complaints last year regarding an unsanctioned event, and we were somewhat limited in our ability to address the concerns of the adjacent, particularly agricultural producers, who experienced not just noise and nuisance and that type of thing, but also had significant concerns around livestock, fire risk, things like that. So I did review the bylaw carefully, and I thought it struck a good balance between government overreach into events that should not be regulated. And I appreciated the exemptions. I think before we maybe hadn't, I can't remember if that had been integrated into our previous proposal, but things being, so I'm assuming that something like a farmer's market would be permitted under a different, like under different planning principles. And then the family events would be not regulated, things like the one, a family wedding on your farm or a funeral gathering or things like that. I did appreciate the balance that was struck in the drafting of this bylaw. We can look at like edits to the draft if there's examples where there might be, overreach, or if we haven't struck the balance. But I do really appreciate administration bringing this forward, because just to strike that balance, and I will fight for landowner rights with my dying breath, but that includes landowner rights from activities on adjacent lands, just around continuing to be able to enjoy, their property and that type of thing. And yeah, I like the balance that this strikes. Any other questions or discussion?
First off, I want to apologize. I ended at page 50. I didn't see the Schedule A on the
Oh,
the new
perfect.
deal. So I want to apologize for that. However, can I ask a question? With this bylaw in place and that, whatever that event was that was causing all the grief last year, would this have made a lot of difference?
Yeah, because our administration would have been able to ensure that it walks through all of the plans that need to be, I'm assuming need to be presented, and then, yeah, and so our administration would be able to ensure that there are emergency response plans or things like that, which we were somewhat constrained in addressing. The other thing I think we should be clear in our discussion is this could apply to events under 200 people. There's the clause around the high-risk activities. So just make sure everybody is aware of that. I'll just find the section. So it could be, so one of the challenges, this event, they did indicate would be less than the 250 people. So the extended dance bylaw arguably did not apply last time. This one under 4.2, section 4.2 does indicate other triggers that might require an applicant to, where this bylaw would apply. And I do appreciate that, because you could have an event where there is 50 people, but where traffic is impacted, the public use of county properties or services, those high-risk activities, or resulting in noise levels. So that's where, even if it was an event like this, and I don't want to get into specifics, but if there was one similar to the one that Councillor Bigger and I had a significant number of complaints last year, this would trigger it regardless, because it was substantive noise. The only question I had was 4.2C, the erection of tents. Is that too broad? Or I guess you would use your discretion in interpreting that. So you're thinking large public tents for.
Through the chair, yes.
Events, yeah.
And through the chair, obviously, any of those would, over the certain size, would require a development permit. So that, of course, they would have to come and apply for a DP under our land use bylaw. And so that we would just incorporate that in with the license.
Right. Deputy Reeve Clausen.
Thank you. I'm just wondering with this, if we move first reading and maybe circulate this to, because I'm reading that it could affect rodeos, parades, and things like that, like existing functions that fall into this category. So they see it, they're aware of it, and if there's any comments and feedback before we enact the complete bylaw. I think that might be helpful in case we miss something.
Could be, but I'm sorry. Could be, but we have to remember that those are in designated areas. This isn't just in the back 40 of someone's field. Those
There
are,
is some rodeos that are.
some of them are, oh, okay.
Yeah. So I think it would be good to have the input back from those people.
Another option that we would have also, and I don't mind that idea, would be to consider the bylaw today, like fully, and put it into force. We can always revise the bylaw as well if we get feedback where there isn't something working. It can be iterative if there's something. I think a substantive amount of work has gone into this, and I think a lot of it is legal considerations and legal advice, as well as, public health and safety and things like that that do fall within our responsibility in the county. Not in private events, and I think we've excluded those, which is important. Councillor Laprise.
I was just going to say that as far as I know, the rodeos that occur on private land do already have to go through a lot of this for the purposes of AGLC. Absolutely. And as there are, and notifying the RCMP, things like that. So I think they're already doing most of this. It would be one more call, really. So, but you're right. It would be good to just let people know that this is coming in.
Yeah, okay. Then we pass this as long as there's some notification to people that are doing this and a little bit of a training, I guess. And if they miss something, you're not shutting them down. You're trying to educate them more, which I'm sure that's the process we would use anyways.
through the chair, our goal isn't to shut everybody down. Wheatland County is becoming a choice place where people want to come and visit. We want to ensure that continues. We're definitely not anti-event. We're pro-safe event. We're anti-poorly planned and unsafe events, but we're pro-safe events.
And this actually, another thing that I meant to mention, this actually does make some events permissible that would not have been permissible previously because they would have required either a development they wouldn't have been able to hold them because they would have required a development permit. So it does say you need 90 days, or it requests 90 days, but there is a clause where consideration could be given with like shorter application period. And I can think of unsanctioned or unpermitted events that have been stopped because the organizer didn't necessarily want to go through a development permit application. This would actually allow some organizations or businesses to hold events within the county for me to go to them and share them in good conscience because they're, sanctioned and appropriate and all of that. So there is actually that benefit to this. But I do recognize the red tape and, that extra step. Councillor Laprise.
I have one more question. I guess that would be about kind of grandfathering the existing events that are happening. Like we've got a Clooney one start in July 1st, or early July. Would they need to follow this bylaw, or what's the timing of?
If I'm through the chair, the old bylaw would be repealed upon third and final reading. So this bylaw would be in effect. How I believe there will be a strong educational period in the beginning to ensure that everybody understands what we're looking for and what the process is. We're not, we're not wanting to come in with a hammer on and start going after that's not the intention. That's my staff doesn't have that kind of time. Our county staff don't have that kind of time to start hunting down all these things. We're going by people's honesty that want to buy the right thing. But this would also in place help us when we find these ones that are random in the back 40 of a field where 300 people have shown up and you can't get a fire truck in or an ambulance in or out, and the police have no idea, and so on and so on and so forth.
Yeah. That's good.
And most of our bylaws are complaint driven because we don't have the capacity to enforce them universally across the entire county all the time. So, and I'm not like condoning anything, but that's just the reality. I will endeavor to reach out to folks like within my division, or maybe even collectively, we can kind of look at some of the events and we can just make some phone calls amongst us just to give them a heads up that we have instituted this. It's, in no way restrictive. And I shouldn't say in no way restrictive. It's not meant to deter events. It's meant to ensure public safety and strike that balance.
I have a question. Do we have an events calendar that we do for the county, like on our website or WC? No.
Through the REAV, not a specific calendar for community events, but we do have our council meeting and council committee schedule that we post online. If that's something that council would like to do, we can definitely do that. We do tend to try to promote some events on our social media page, but not just necessarily in a calendar format.
Might be something if we do have these events coming in on paper and planned, be able to, if they want, just a little box saying that we could be added to some events calendar that's advertised.
I love that idea.
So I would like to move that council move first reading of bylaw 2023-15 special events bylaw being a bylaw to establishing licensing and regulation of special events within Wheatland County.
Thank you, Councillor Bigger. Any questions or discussion?
So we are somehow going to incorporate telling people that this can be repealed if there's a lot of feedback on this.
Every bylaw is only as good as
Right,
sort of
but
the
it's
next resolution, but it could also be revised.
Yes, sorry.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So will this, if there can be a revision made to this at a later date, like as long as the public knows that?
We do frequently do that with bylaws, right? Like if something's not working, it comes to our attention. Sometimes administration will get, input into proposed revisions. But we always have that ability. So I would encourage anybody, if you get feedback or suggestions for improvements to the bylaw, please bring them to council. And it can be an iterative document. This is new. So yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Any other questions or discussion? All in favor? Councillor Bigger had moved first reading. That's okay. Opposed? Motion is carried.
I'll move that council move second reading of bylaw 2023-15.
Any questions or discussion?
Can we have a public hearing before the reading as Councillor Clausen suggested?
Yeah, if council, I think we can have a public hearing for any matter. Yes.
Yeah, council can have any sort of engagement session they'd like.
I just think that might be better than trying to redo a bylaw. Let's get the input first and then give it second and third reading.
Yeah, that's an option. Does administration see any time? I know there have been some challenging events. I don't know if we're anticipating any that could be challenging from an enforcement perspective.
I've not seen anything upcoming that would be able to mitigate, and I would be in favor of a public hearing. I agree completely that rather than having to come back with stuff afterwards, and of course another option is, I believe council can delay implementation date as well. If they passed it, they can say it takes effect on a certain date rather than immediate. I mean, there's all sorts of options in your book.
Perfect. There is, if we were to schedule a public hearing, we would probably want to rescind second reading and hold a public hearing.
Yeah, so two things. One, no one voted on it. So the motion can be rescinded at any time prior to voting. Two, I guess the other option is you could hold second reading and then just not do third reading, then hold the public hearing. Or three, you can rescind that motion and then direct administration on how you'd like that process, the public input or public hearing engagement session to go forward. So just with time constraints, what we'd have to do is we'd have to compile a list of people in the county entirely, because this one's not necessarily like a circulation area. We'd have to come up with a list of individuals or we'd probably do a countywide circulation because it could impact anyone. So it would be a significant mail out. So it actually would take quite a bit of time, which is fine. But it, just something to consider as well.
I don't have our procedure bylaw pulled up. I can just pull it up right now. We could also do, as CAO Henderson said, something like a public input session, which wouldn't require the notification, but we could still advertise it on our social media channels and that type of thing, and invite input on that because of the potential impact to the entire county. I don't know if that, Councillor Lawerson, would meet the outcomes that you're looking for in Deputy Reeve Clausen.
I would prefer a public hearing, but I guess public input is better than nothing.
For me, just as long as there's a date and a time and enough notice for someone to, come here and say or submit, that's good enough for me. It probably would have to be countywide circulation through social media and things like that. I wouldn't suggest a mail out to everybody, but if that's the procedure we have to follow, then that would be fine too.
I think there's notification requirements for a public hearing that would not necessarily be the same for an open public input session. Council can still, take into full consideration any input that's required and.
And just so administration is clear through the Reeve. So also just so expectations are met from council, it might be wise for council to tell administration exactly how you'd like us to notify the community, just so everyone is reached to your expectations. So whether that is circulation throughout the entire county, just posts on social media, just through word of mouth, whatever council would like to do, we can do that, no problem. This isn't a mandated public hearing. It's not a requirement of the MGA to do it for this bylaw, which is fine. We just need to understand exactly how council would like us to circulate the county. Thank you.
So we do currently have a motion for second reading on the floor. We've had some discussion about holding either a public hearing or a public input session. Council's wishes.
I guess I will rescind my motion. And I'll move that council direct administration to ask for public input via posts on social media. I'd like to keep this as cost effective as possible. Honestly, I don't think this is going to get a lot of comments, but I might be wrong. So through social media, I don't know, is there anything else that we can?
Our website.
Or website, yeah. And report back to council, I guess.
And do we want to schedule a public input session, or are we just looking for feedback submitted? Within a public input session, people could present, or they could send written correspondence if they're not able to attend. But we could look at a future council meeting, either our second council meeting in June, or we have July 4th. That would give a month for people to give input or to attend.
Okay. Yes, let's say July 4th. For people to either attend or provide written comments.
Okay, so just to reiterate, directing administration to advertise a public input session scheduled for July 4th during our regular council meeting on social media and the Wheatland County website, and that input will be received either verbally during the public input session or through written comments. That captures.
Exactly.
Is everybody clear on the motion?
And just through the Reeve as well, would it be possible to add a time of 10:30 to that as well? Just so it's kind of out of the way of the bylaws itself, any potential bylaws, but also provides a time for residents to come in.
Yeah, I'd be happy to add 10:30 to that.
Perfect. There's a motion on the floor. Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. Thanks for the discussion, everybody. Could we just call like a 5-minute recess and reconvene at 9:48? Good morning. Sorry for the delay. We'll call the meeting back to order. We'll move to agenda item 2.31. Because this matter could create pecuniary interest for me, I'm going to recuse myself from the conversation and turn the chair over to Deputy Reeve Clausen.
For sure. Thank you for that. Councillor Eichert, you brought this item forward. If you want to proceed.
I'm just thinking that I've done a lot of thinking on this, and I think there should be a county policy in place that is sort of voluntary on the people that take advantage of it. But if a vehicle is damaged, like a administration's vehicle that are attending a public meeting, or a councillor's vehicle is damaged while attending that meeting, I think there should be an option there that, or like a note there that that there's got to be some recourse that the county is sort of can pay for some of the damages, like whether or not, like, because I don't know, we don't know the if it's the first act of vandalism, it may or may not affect your deal. But say if you hit a deer and you made that claim, and then somebody keys your vehicle, it is definitely going to affect your insurance rates. So I'm just trying to figure out, is there some sort of a policy we can put in place that we could step up if the people that were affected by this wanted to take that? Like, I don't know what it has to happen in other jurisdictions. Like we're not the only ones that have dickheads in the area. So,
Language, please.
so I don't know, can I direct administration to look into if there is such a policy? Like I said, like if yourself, Amber, may just say, no, it's part of doing the business, and that's all fine and dandy, but it could also be that it could be, somebody might say, hold it, now if I do this is going to definitely affect me, and how do we minimize that damage? So does that sort of make sense? Can I direct administration to look into, see if there's policies in other municipalities covering this kind of, wanton vandalism, and you don't want, does that make sense?
Yes, through the deputy review. Yeah, that makes total sense. It's a pretty clear direction. Administration can follow through on that if that's the wish of the majority of council.
So there's no motion yet, but discussion with what's going on the floor. Go ahead, Mr.
Oh, after this first came up, I checked with my insurance company, and this is all covered, and there will be no additional cost. So I won't be in favor of this.
Mr. Kester?
When you become a counselor,
Councilor Kester.
the first thing you do is go to the insurance company and you tell them, and then they increase your premium for council activities. Like you're driving here, I'm going to Edmonton like everybody else. And over the course of the year, not familiar with any deer strikes, but there's been one vehicle ended up in a pond, broke through the ice. There's been another one rear-ended on number 2 that I know for sure. I mean, what is the breaking point? You're on county business. I go to town for a meeting and somebody hits. We have insurance that covers it. And if you don't take it out and you don't get covered, it's your own fault for not notifying the insurance company. But it is part of your insurance package to cover you for this. So it's a counselor. What happens if there's a ratepayer there? They have just as much rate. Be compensated too. And I say, no, we have insurance companies and let them deal with it. You have your own insurance.
Did you?
I kind of disagree because it's not an accident. It's not something that was prevented. It was actually an act of vandalism. So I'm sure that the policy could read vandalism, and you're obligated to go. And we all have our own vehicles. We don't have county vehicles. If it was to be second time of a claim, yes, your insurance will go up. I don't know, Rick's got an amazing insurance policy, but if I have 2 claims, my insurance will go up.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, I guess I'm in favor of having some more information provided. Yeah, I do think that it's a unique business that we're in, where we are subject to vandalism that I don't think too many others are. And so I wouldn't mind seeing what protections are available if there could be.
For myself, I'm always in favor of more information. I was thinking along the lines of what other municipalities do. If there is something out there that's maybe, and I know talking to other councillors in other municipalities, this is becoming more and more common. The higher up MLAs and MPs even, it's really bad. And I don't think we should ever condone that behavior in any way, shape or form. The insurance that we have, and Councillor Kester is speaking of, that's your personal insurance. Maybe there's some kind of rider that we can have within the county in the future that we pay extra for through that. I don't know, but maybe there's something along that line through our insureds. Or maybe there's an option where we have to take county vehicles if we're going to something that we feel we need that, which I think is available anyways if we need it. But we've never used that. I mean, we take these jobs on to be responsible to your community and to your area. I never would fathom that you would get damaged going to this kind of thing. It just blows me away, especially staff. I mean, I can understand us, but staff are neutral in regards to a vast majority of the problems that we have to deal with. So I'm in favor of just getting more information. I have no idea how it'll work out, but it's something that we need to keep daylighted. And yeah.
Okay, I'd like to direct administration to look into best practices regarding acts of vandalism practiced by other municipalities. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Any discussion on the motion? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor? Did you in favor? Okay, opposed? That's carried.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's just information at this stage. Thank you. I will get Reeve Link back in.
Perfect, thank you. Good morning. We will move to agenda item 2.21, and I would like to welcome Detachment Commander Staff Sergeant Mark Wilgosh from the Strathmore RCMP. Good morning.
Good morning, Your Worship, members of council. I appreciate the opportunity to appear before you again to provide you a report. All my comments will be made through the CAO to the chair and to the rest of council for the duration of the report. I suppose by opening, I guess I'll offer some apologies for some datedness of this material because we're looking at Q3, particularly of our reporting period, which ended in December of 2022, just as a result of some scheduling discrepancies and appearance dates. But I do hope to be before you again to give you the year-end report and to speak more further with respect to council input on priorities for our upcoming fiscal year and our new policing priorities. I will provide some information and a bit of a sneak peek and update for our Q4 report in advance, just to provide you a little bit more context and a little bit more current information for you. So I guess before you that you see here, those included in the council package was the Q4 crime statistics, and I can speak a little bit more to that after I provide you a bit of the overview of our Q3 report. As you're aware, we have our 3 policing priorities that we've been working on over the last fiscal year. That being, I guess, priority 1 being the reduction of property crimes, specifically theft from motor vehicles, theft of motor vehicles, and break-and-enters. I guess if it's not in the council package here, I'm seeing a couple confused looks. Hopefully the report was disseminated at some point, but at least I can give you a verbal remarks as far as how we were doing through Q3 and give you a bit of an update as far as how we ended up closer to the year end of our fiscal year, which ended on March 31st, 2023. And hopefully I can appear before you in the near future to provide you more of robust reporting on our Q4, as well as the typical graphics and visualizations for you. With respect to our property crimes, I can tell you we continued with our ongoing initiatives to ensure that we're doing the best we can to prevent, detect, and deter crime, not only in our municipal areas, but our rural areas as well. Our habitual offender management program was still, we're still working through that program. Through Q3, we were monitoring 15 habitual offenders and conducted 86 checks. Most notably, one offender that we were monitoring in the Wheatland County area was at large, or at least on release conditions, with over 40 charges. Over half had to do with armed robberies. That person we were able to find in violation of their conditions and had that person in custody within a couple of days. I can tell you that person remained in custody until about the last month, and they've been released back into the rural area within Wheatland County again. We've continued our monitoring efforts with that particular individual. Otherwise, our monitoring efforts have been ongoing to ensure that we're strategic with where we're focusing our effort and time with those who we believe are committing the most crimes in our area, but also the most impactful towards our residents. Our Persons of Interest program remains ongoing, and again, these are people who may not be bound by conditions, but persons who have come to our attention before. Again, that's an initiative we have underway with our general investigation section, which is comprised of Strathmore municipal and rural members, to again remain on top of people who may be in our communities, who may pose some potential threat. But again, it's more of a matter of ensuring that we're helping them live a law-abiding lifestyle. The Security Screw program is still active, and they are available at all of our dealership locations within Strathmore, the detachment, the fire hall, and also the Langdon office. Our business outreach program is something that we're piloting within Rocky View County, within Wrangler Park specifically. We have businesses that have been attended by our members to do a CPTED assessment to ensure that we're helping them become less attractive targets for potential property crimes. We selected, I believe, 7 businesses to start that had been the victim of property crimes within more than twice in the past year, and that's been well received. Our program is still going to be expanded to at least make phone contact with businesses to ask them if they do want an on-site assessment, but also to gather pertinent information about businesses, their typical operating procedures, key holders, persons that may be contacted after hours. So for example, if we have a business that doesn't normally operate past 10 p.m., for instance, and our members are conducting a patrol and they see activity on the property outside of those hours, then that's an indicator to ask a few more questions, perhaps enter the property and determine what that person is there for and what they're doing. And again, having a contact or a key holder that could be spoken to, that gives us an after hours contact to verify whether that person should be there or not. So starting on the low end, whether it be trespassing, potential mischief or disrupting potential crimes at those businesses. It is quite labor intensive. We are working through this initial pilot project phase and determining the feasibility of an enhanced program such as the Capture program, which is a registry that we could set up where businesses could proactively through a third-party site register themselves, identify certain specifics about their business, which would only be accessible by our detachment members to access after hours. So that would include whether or not they have video surveillance, who could access it, and what the video surveillance on their property does capture. Our members, when they're responding to crimes within their vehicles and their mobile workstations, can access a map in the background and determine areas that are close by and contact information in a timely manner to identify witnesses and potential video surveillance of crimes. As far as where we were in those selected crime groups, by the end of Q3, as far as break-and enters were concerned, we were slightly up from 0 to 5 in the quarter. However, on the 4-year average, we were down from 7 to 5, which is a 29% reduction. As of Q4, we did see a bit of an increase from 1 to 8 in Q4. However, in our 4-year crime averages, we were actually slightly down, I believe by about 28%, down by about 28% over the 4-year averages. So we do see some fluctuation throughout Q3, Q4, and trending, at least in the last couple of months, we are seeing a bit of an upward trend. But based on our historical levels, we're within our norms, and it's certainly below our 4-year highs. Theft of motor vehicles did increase to 6 from 3 in Q3. In that 4-year average, it was a bit of an increase as well from 4 to 6 in the 4-year average. However, looking at Q4, we did also see a bit of an increase from 12 to 16. However, when we're looking at our highs, our historical highs, we were decreased from 28 down to 18 for the year. So that's a 42% reduction from our 4-year highs. So we did see a little bit of an increase at the end of the fiscal year. It's not what we're shooting for, but we look in contextually as far as our historical crime data is concerned, we were still, not nowhere near what our 4-year highs were for that same period of time. Theft from motor vehicles were reduced in Q3 from 6 to 0 in that period of time. In the 4-year average, again, it was down from, on the 4-year average at 4 down to 0. So we didn't have any theft from motor vehicles through Q3. And again, that's the October to December period of time. In Q4, we saw a reduction from 3 historically in that time period. So that's January to March, from 3 to 1. In the 4-year average in Q4, it's down from 10 to 14. So again, a 29% reduction. And overall, in our 4-year averages, for the year, we saw a reduction from 29 to 10. So it's about a 66% reduction. So we saw most of our reductions in break and enter and theft from motor vehicles, while we did see a bit of a slight increase to theft of motor vehicles in that period of time. Moving along to our traffic safety initiatives. Throughout Q3, as far as enforcement was concerned, we had 26 immediate roadside sanctions within our entire Strathmore municipal rural areas, which I can say is probably the highest we've had in any single quarter with the implementation of the immediate roadside sanctions program. I believe, as I've commented before in the past, these types of suspensions roadside, provided there aren't any complicating factors such as either collision or negative aggravating factor, like perhaps potentially children in the vehicle or excessive speeds. These incidents can be dealt with through the provincial roadside sanctions program. Roadside, potentially a driver could be start to finish, could be processed within about 30 minutes to perhaps 45 minutes. And some of our members do process multiple immediate roadside sanctions in single evenings based on how quickly they can move through them. Throughout Q3, there were 6 check stops for 366 vehicles checked. There was 1 immediate roadside sanction issued during those check stops, 3 actual impaired investigations, and 0 violations issued. So it seems that the more visible we are, I guess our charge rate and our suspension rate seems to be a little bit lower. Our members are typically getting a lot more, they're detecting a lot more based on their roving patrols and just general patrol throughout our rural and municipal areas. And again, I apologize that we don't have the graphics here before you, but I'll give you verbally the numbers here as far as where we were at. In Q3, we were looking at reportable collisions. In Wheatland County, we were down from 49 to 48, so a slight reduction. And in our historical averages, we were in Q4 up slightly from 36 to 48. Flash forward to Q4, where our numbers went from 30 to 32, so a very slight increase in that particular quarter. And in our 4-year averages, as far as year to date was concerned, over the year we increased from 125 reportable collisions to 146, which is a 19% increase. But when I look at our historical numbers for the year-end results, our highest was 182 in 1 year, so we were at 146. That was about a 20% reduction, if my math is correct. So again, we're a little bit higher than we were expected. Most of our collisions are as a result of animal strikes, but year-round progress, we were a little higher than we wanted to be as far as reportable collisions, but still far lower than what our historical highs were. As far as injury collisions were concerned, we were down in Q3 from 11 to 5. And for the 4-year averages for that quarter, it was unchanged at 5, so it's 0 change as far as that was concerned. In Q4, we saw a small reduction from 5 injury collisions to 4 in our rural Wheatland County area. And for the year-end results, we were down from 26 to 25, so a slight reduction. So we were on track a little bit lower than where we were shooting for as far as our reductions in injury collisions. And if I were to pick which ones were the most, impactful, those are the ones that are causing injuries and fatalities on our roadways. So our roadways through Wheatland County, I would argue, are very safe, arguably, some of the safest in the Calgary urban area. Our community involvement initiatives remained active. So through Q3, most of our activities were geared around Remembrance Day ceremonies and Halloween. So our members were in our rural areas in Wheatland County. I believe through Standard and Rockyford even, our members were out there doing foot patrols and handing out candy to kids during that period of time. I'll have more to report for you in Q4 fairly shortly. But again, I'll move through what our progress was through Q3. All of the remainder of our programs, which council is familiar with, such as our youth initiatives, our community liaison program, our members' involvement within the schools as far as attendance to making those positive contacts with kids in the schools remained active through Q3 and Q4. And into the future, I do plan to keep those initiatives in place because I do believe they're very valuable to be connecting with our residents in our rural and municipal areas. Just a quick update on our Watch Clerk program through that period of time. And currently, all of our positions are filled. They continue to provide valuable support. And again, our detachment members and especially people that we're able to connect with in our rural and municipal areas are very grateful and thankful for the investments that our municipal stakeholders have made into that program. Calls for service as a bit of a wrap up at the end of Q3. We attended 882 calls in Wheatland County, which was up from 688 year to date through the fiscal year from the year before. So we did see a bit of an increase in files through Q3, and as far as our cumulative for the year, Q4 I'll have more for you on that once I have an opportunity to appear before council once again. That is my report for Q3. As far as our crime statistics are concerned, when we look at the first quarter of 2023, so that's January to March, that will cover a Q4 period of time. This covers all of our provincial and numbers within our rural areas. So that would be including Rockview County as well. I will have some updated data for you in the short term, but we did see some reductions in overall persons crimes, 25% reduction from last year. We see our historical averages that they calculate here, our year-over-year reductions was about 63%. Sorry, I don't see the way I used to. I didn't bring my glasses with me. My apologies. Our property crimes, well, we did see slight elevations, and this is just a snapshot from January to the end of March. Some slight increases overall. When we look at our 5-year averages that they provide to us, we're down 35%. So again, we saw a slight increase for this year in the same time period over last year, but we see where your historical highs have been. And as presented before, when we take a look at 2020 and 2021, that was a bit of a artificial crime reduction period of time. So that's where we see some of our lows through there as well. Not discounting the efforts of our members through that period of time, but there was some impact. And one other area that I tend to take a look at here. Yeah, fails and compliant breaches. Like when we take a look at other criminal code, and a lot of those offenses that are included in there is a lot of our breaches and failure to comply with conditions. That comes largely as a result of our members' proactive efforts in checking on our habitual offenders or catching people that are traveling through our area in contravention of court-ordered conditions. We did see a bit of a slight decrease, so we have been seeing a little bit fewer of these instances, which in some ways can be regarded as positive. If we're encountering fewer of these individuals. However, I can tell you our current crime trends, we are seeing a bit of an increase of our traveling area offender activity. Most of our crimes are committed, particularly in Wheatland County, are committed by those who don't even live here. We do have a bit of a struggle still being, even in Wheatland County, close enough to the city of Calgary where we are within that reach, and we do at times have crime series that are committed by very few group of individuals that happen to have a lot of impact on our rural and municipal areas. We do work very well with intelligence and information sharing with our district analyst group, as well as our Southern Alberta District crime reduction team, to try and track these roving elements, if you will. At times, sometimes we don't catch them here in Wheatland County. We might catch them in a crime series with some of the offenses occurring here, perhaps in Cochrane's area or Airdrie's area. And we do the best we can to ensure that, again, we're apprehending individuals responsible for these offenses, but doing the best we can to ensure that they remain in a place that they're not impacting our residents. That's all I have. If there's any questions, again, I apologize. There seems to have been a bit of a mix-up here as far as some information available to you. So I do hope to be before council again very, very soon with full, more fulsome and robust reporting for the end of Q4, and at least in a period of a position to perhaps seek some input from council on a focus in policing priorities coming through this next fiscal year.
Thank you, and we'll ensure that the report is circulated to council if it wasn't. Does anybody have any questions for Staff Sergeant Wilgosh?
I just have one. Just when I was looking at the information provided, one of the things that stood out to me was statistics on fraud. It seemed like it all of a sudden went up quite a bit for this year, and I was just curious if there's anything in particular that is going on that we would be able to warn residents about, or if this is just 10 separate kinds of things that are not related.
So in the area of fraud, so if you're looking through in the crime statistics here, where we had an increase from 2022 to 2023, and again, this only covers January to March and that same time frame through that period. We saw an increase from 11 to last year to 17 this year. And my review of occurrences, it's mainly the phone scams and the romance scams and the Canada Revenue Agency scams. A lot of it's over the phone. Some of it being through the internet, mostly over the phone type scams that are being reported to us. It's unfortunate at times, and I can't speak about any particular case, but some of the more unfortunate cases where a person believes they were befriended over online, they believe that there is a legitimate relationship, and I've seen sums of up over $100,000 up to $150,000 worth of money being transferred during that contact. We try to educate the public as best as we can. The best advice I can offer outside of the amount of information we put out into the public is, if it seems too good to be true, it probably is. And those of us who have friends and family, or particularly elderly family members that speak about some of these types of weird types of scenarios that just kind of rubs you the wrong way. If it seems suspicious, it probably is. Please give them the best advice and guidance that you can. Everyone can always visit the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre for a list of all of the known and trending types of online types of scams or frauds. And at minimum, if you wanted to call the detachment, we're happy to field those phone calls and give you an opinion as far as what's going on.
I was just thinking if the RCMP had any communication that they wanted to share and have us share on our social media type thing. I was just thinking of ways to remind people to be, kind of thinking about that when they're talking to somebody they think they know or whatever.
Yeah, certainly we can, and I can speak with Sergeant Perman here as well. We do have fraud prevention and awareness initiatives that are ongoing throughout the year. But again, having those links, perhaps even just a simple link to the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre where people can easily click on it, and it'll take them to that website, and they can search whatever, like I said, the ongoing types of scams and frauds that are going on these days.
Any other questions regarding the update? Thank you, Staff Sergeant Wilgosh, to your and your team for your service to Wheatland County, and to our peace officers as well. We're grateful, and we're grateful for the safety that you contribute to. Thank you.
Thank you, Worship.
Perhaps a motion to accept the update as information.
Also move.
Thank you, Councillor Laprise. Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you. We'll move to agenda item 2.32, the annual report, and administration had circulated that to council earlier.
Yes, good morning, council. Okay. Yes, good morning, council. Brian from administration. So we ended up circulating the 2022 annual report to council electronically on Friday. We just hadn't had final review of it prior to the publication of the council package. The reason for it being in addition today instead of just being published prior into the June 20th package is that we do have that open house on June 20th that we're hoping just to get approval to go ahead and publish the annual report prior to then, so we can have copies ready for that open house. If there are any questions, please let administration know. It was emailed to all of council on Friday. Thank you.
Any questions or council's wishes regarding the annual report?
So I have a couple of suggestions maybe for just the one section on the county profile. So the second paragraph, Wheatland County offers an ideal blend of rural and urban lifestyles. I'm not sure if we really provide much in the way of urban, or what I would consider urban. I was thinking that we could change it to say, Wheatland County offers an ideal blend of farm, ranch, acreage, and small town living. I'm just throwing suggestions out so we can certainly take or leave it. And then let me just compare what's here. Styles. And is also conveniently located next door to the city of Calgary, the fastest growing city in Canada. I was just thinking that it's like a secondary that we're next to Calgary, not that it's a primary benefit. Then the next part, I would say, the proud heritage of independence and hard work is evident in the community's farms and ranches. We say their farms and ranches, and there is kind of not specific. So I would say in the community's farms and ranches, and their work ethic. Yeah, so now we say their instead of community's work ethic, and dedicated stewardship of the land, and I would say continues to be their strength. Not that this is a new thing, but it's a continuation. And then I would say, and then I would end that period there because it kind of gets long, and I would put the next sentence, this is particularly evident with the careful growth and development of the agribusiness, oil and gas, and manufacturing industries. So that's basically the same, but I would add industries on the back. Let's see, the next sentence I left, that's fine. The population of Wheatland County is concentrated in the communities of Carsland, Gleason, Speargrass, and Lyalta, with the future population growth expected in these areas. I don't know if I like to cluster in these areas. I just thought it, but that's just my own preference. I don't know. Then I thought that instead of the majority of households, we might want to say most households consist of. Consist of couples, and then I would put in brackets with or without children, just for clarity, accounting for 75% of the population in the county, and approximately 38% of households have children living in the home, which is higher than the national average. And then I didn't know if we wanted to keep this one. However, housing options are limited within the county, and the addition of more rental or multifamily housing options would help attract more residents to the area. Unless we're planning on focusing on this in our next period of time, I'm not sure that this is reflective of our efforts, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. And then community spirit is abundant in Wheatland County and spread throughout all of the communities. And then I would just clean up community halls, comma, associations, comma, agricultural societies, comma, sports and social clubs can be found in all areas of the county, making it easy to, and I would just change that to foster connections with neighbors, family, and friends. So it's just a couple of suggestions as to make it more kind of flow better, I would say. But
I love the suggestions. The only, I would contemplate that as an amendment if council's open to that. Or we could contemplate it and see if council's open to it. I might take small towns out and say hamlets, just so that it's more representative of Wheatland County, unless we're talking more about the region, but for the county, hamlets rather than towns.
I would agree. Yep. Yep. Then I just had a couple of small things. So on the quote by both Amber and the CAO, page 5 and 6, there's a beginning quotation mark, but not the ending.
I think that's often a design in some of those design programs.
Fine then.
I know exactly what you're saying. I see it sometimes in the design program.
If it's purposely done, that's fine. If it was, just an oversight, that's, then on page 11, in that,
Page 11 of the PDF or the,
yes, of the PDF, sorry.
okay, no, that's okay.
Let's see.
Sorry, Shannon, I just looked that way. I can't help it.
It should be one without a picture. I don't. Execution. Let's see. So in the first paragraph, it says to ensure alignment with the long-term plans and policies, the council develops a corporate business plan, but I think it's the executive team that creates the business plan.
Excellent catch.
And then my only final comment is on the last page. The picture is great, except to me, it looks like it's got an oil leak or something, this fire truck. So I don't know if we could choose a different picture or Photoshop.
You said the last page?
Photoshop the wet spot under the fire truck.
Oh, yeah. Excellent. Thank you.
Those are my only comments. Otherwise, I really did think it was an excellent looking document and very, provides all of the information that residents would be interested to see. So congratulations.
Yeah, and I would echo those comments. I thought it was very well put together. I was counting on your attention to detail due to some heavy commitments over the last few days. So thank you. But really, just an excellent representation of the work over the last year and the position of the county. And I appreciated the highlights, and the work and the design is fantastic. So any other questions or comments on the annual report? So there is a motion just on the addendum piece of the agenda looking for approval, and there could be a motion to approve with the suggested amendments. I might just ask if you have them in writing, if you might be able to provide them to administration. It
I
might.
do, I can, yep. So I'll move that council approve the 2022 annual report with amendments and direct administration to publish and distribute the report for information.
Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. We'll move to agenda item 2.33. For council's consideration, I would like to move that council authorize the Reeve on behalf of council to sign letters of appreciation addressed to the deployed firefighters, fire chiefs, and fire association presidents, expressing gratitude for their exceptional service during the spring 2023 wildfire emergency. So we had a number of firefighters who answered the call from our neighboring municipalities in central and northern Alberta to fight fires. It was grueling work and required a tremendous amount of courage and grit to go into those dynamic, evolving fire situations. I know I spoke with colleagues, elected officials in central and northern Alberta that were incredibly thankful for all of the firefighters across Alberta, including Wheatland County, that answered that call. And I just think it's important that on behalf of council, we recognize that service and thank our firefighters. Any questions or discussion? Deputy Reeve Clausen.
Yeah, great idea. I was thinking the same thing. I do personally thank these people that went away and took time away from their families to go help out a neighbor in need. That is pretty much what built Alberta, and it's great to see. Also, I suggest that we circulate this to our MLAs in the area too, so they know. And I believe, I would assume there'll be something coming from them in the future too.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Any other questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. We'll move to agenda item 3.1. My council report is included in the package. I do apologize for my absence through the beginning of May and through some events. I did have surgery at the end of April that had quite a lengthy anticipated recovery. I do want to thank Deputy Reeve Clausen for stepping up and attending some events and chairing meetings in my absence. I do appreciate it. I guess I will just point that the Intermunicipal Collaboration Committee work with the town of Strathmore is going well. We were able to establish terms of reference for the committee, and that was quite a collaborative process. Our administration teams have been working well together and providing strong support to the committee as well. And I was honored to attend with some of our colleagues on council, the Wheatland Crossing graduation ceremonies in Standard. It was really exciting to see the graduates that are emerging from Wheatland Crossing School. And when I say the future is bright for Wheatland County, I definitely mean that. There was a lot of excitement and optimism, some uncertainty with some of the graduates, but that's part of that transition into adulthood. So very excited for our graduates from Wheatland Crossing and the other schools where students from Wheatland County attend as well. With that, I will move that my report be accepted as presented, and I'm happy to answer any questions. All in favor? Motion is carried. We'll move to 3.
Thank you. My report is on the desk here. It was a late submission. My apologies for that. Time slipped away from me in June. Just the usual meetings that I attend, and just want to say to Reeve Link, don't ever apologize for taking care of your health. That is the most important. And was happy to step in and do my part as any councillor would. And yeah, my report's here. Any questions? If not, I'll make a motion to accept as presented.
Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. We'll move to agenda item 3.3.
My report is on page 62 of the package. I'll just highlight a couple things. Strathmore Wheatland Chamber of Commerce elected a new executive. So Whitney Montgrand is the board chair, Michelle Bissett, vice chair, Evan McLeod as treasurer, and Jared Kendrick, a new member, as secretary. And Natasha Fife, who is involved with the Wheatland Crisis Society, will be our executive director moving forward. So looking forward to a great new year ahead of us. We had an Alice PAC meeting, and we approved 4 more projects for financial support for some agricultural projects in the county. So I've also, just to jump ahead, I've attached a summary of all of the agriculture funding opportunities that are available to Wheatland County residents. And there's lots that are there for farmers and ranchers who want to do different kinds of projects in the area. So I highly recommend that people have a look to see what's available and try and use what they can when they can. I also, the ARC team, Addictions Resource Coalition, hosted a mental health barbecue at Strathmore's Kinsman Park, and it was really well attended. There was approximately 500 people in attendance. Great many people were there, enjoying the different and attending the different booths that were there, and we had lots of activities for people to take part in. So it was a really good event, and we'll probably do it again next year. So I also attended the County of Wheatland Public Works Barbecue, which is an awesome way to welcome the new summer staff and to celebrate the great work of our Public Works team. And also the Wheatland Crossing graduation ceremony I was also in attendance, although who Sharon LaPrise is, I'm not sure. But that's okay, it happens. So besides that, yeah, I think I will move my report as presented. Any questions I can answer?
Just got one question regards Wheatland Housing Management Board. They've reinstated their COVID policy regarding board members. And I'm just wondering, vaccinations, what is that number? Is the vaccinations 2? Is the vaccinations 2 plus a booster? Is the vaccinations 2 plus 2 boosters? Or AHS standards, I believe right now are 2 plus 3 boosters.
And I had asked that, and I was told that it was 3 shots total. I don't know if it's 1 shot and 2 boosters, or how does that work? I don't know. I think it's 3 shots that you're required. No, 2 shots. The first 2. And is that AHS? They said that was an AHS requirement. So I never did look it up to see, but.
Yeah, no, I was talking to if you're working in an AHS facility, it is now 2 shots, the original 2 shots and 3 boosters, I believe, is current, so.
I will have to look into that for you.
Thank you.
If you could share that with all of council, or maybe just bring it back to the next council meeting. I just would want to be aware of the information as well.
Yep.
Any other questions or discussion regarding Councillor Shannon Laprice's? Do you prefer Laprice or Laprise?
Laprice.
Laprice, okay. Report. All in favor? Motion is carried. There's also a request to ratify attendance at the ARC Mental Health Barbecue.
Thank you for the reminder. Yeah, so that was a half a day that on a Saturday I went to attend for that barbecue. So I was hoping to get ratification to attend and for mileage to be there.
Council's wishes.
I'd like to make the motion to ratify Councilor Priest's attendance, mileage, and per diem for that event.
Thanks, Deputy Reeve Clausen. Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. We'll move to agenda item 3.4.
Yep, my report is on page 57. And other than the Speargrass AGM and WFCSS, all same as everybody else's, I'm just going to move my report as presented.
Any questions for Councillor Bigger? All in favor? Motion is carried. We'll move to agenda item 3.5.
My report is on the server. I think everything's been pretty well covered. Went to a signage meeting via Zoom. I just want to give kudos to our staff for the work on I get compliments all the time on how good. They ask us who our designers were, what company we went to, and they can't believe that we kept this in-house. We've got some amazing people. We're just progressing on trying to figure out how much more signage we need, like the small villages like the hamlet signage, how to work with the hamlets, whether or not we can use the signage, whether we need leaving the original signage, just putting other signage. So that group is the administration, the staff working in that group is superior. So thank you very much for that. And with that, I'll move my report. If there's any questions, I will be glad to answer them.
Any questions for Councillor Eichert? All in favor? Motion is carried. We'll move to agenda item 3.6.
Yeah, I didn't get my report in on time. May the 2nd was council meeting. May the 9th was MPC and Cowan.
Any questions for Councillor Kester? Deputy Reeve Clausen?
Thank you. Councillor Kester, my understanding is you are the chair of WHMB now. Just a heads up and point of clarification, I guess. Are all alternates on a mailing list usually?
No,
No? Okay.
not anymore. There was some confusion, so it's just board members are on the mailing list. The board member wants their alternate informed. It's their responsibility to inform them.
Has that recently changed?
It was never policy to mail it out before, so there was confusion and the list was erratic. So just for a point of clarification, staff said they'll just send it out to board members and alternates. Talk to your board member if you want a copy.
Okay. Well, there was a letter sent in early May from here informing, and I never got any response whatsoever. So I just wanted to bring a heads up to that. So there was no response back that we wouldn't be on a mailing list or would, so.
Would it be helpful as alternate if there was a request made for you to be added to?
Well, I just,
Agenda mail
if there's a
out?
policy or whatever, just some kind of response, so I know if I'm supposed to be reviewing
Ask
these
your
documents.
board member to forward a copy to you.
Okay. Thank you.
We could ask the board member to request the policy change where you could just be put on the agenda list as well. I know when I sit as alternate on some boards, I do try and follow just some of the work of the board. I know we did that with CMRB. Like, I don't think I sit as alternate on, I think maybe only on one board, but I do just try and stay abreast of sort of the current issues. So if I do have to jump into a meeting, I'm somewhat informed, but I would leave it up to you.
Okay.
But a request could go to the board.
I'm good. I just wanted to daylight that.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Any other questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. We'll move to agenda item 3.7.
My report's on page 70. It's pretty self-explanatory if you have any questions. If not, I'll move it as presented.
Any questions for Councillor Laverson? All in favor? Motion is carried. We'll move to agenda item 4.1.
Good morning, Council. Brian from administration. On page 71 of your agenda package is my monthly report. Just to highlight a few items that are not on this report that administration is working on is administration's undertaking the exercise of reviewing a number of population in each electoral boundary division. So what we're trying to do is come up with a method to adjust the boundaries to even out the population. That's an exercise that should be done kind of on every kind of election cycle basis. It hasn't been completed at Wheatland since 2002, I believe, is the last one that we're following. So that information will come back to council for consideration at committee of the whole in August. So we're kind of just working on that one through GIS and residential mapping. So that's an interesting one. Administration is also working on the rural healthcare resolution through RMA. The motion that was put forward by council. So we just have that first draft done. We're just kind of reviewing it before we bring it back to council. And then finally, the last thing that administration is working on is just publishing an advertisement for the council compensation committee review. So that under policy 5.1.1 needs to be done every second year. So the last time it was done in 2021. So we're just finalizing the advertisement. So it's a group of 3 ratepayers within the county. We try to spread them out through divisions so we don't have a number in a certain amount of 2 in one division. So try to number that, but we also just wait for the applicants to come in and we kind of just do some background work for them to get that for them, to help them with their creation of that report. If there are any questions, please let me know. Thank you.
Any questions for CAO Henderson?
I'll move the council accept the May 2023 Chief Administration Officer report as information.
Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried.
I'll move,
Oh, thank you.
I'll move that council accept the June 6, 2023 council resolution tracker as information.
Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. We'll move to agenda item 4.12.
Yes, good morning, Council. Brian again from administration. On page 82 is a request from the Huzzar Lions Club for the Summer Days Committee, and they'd request that 4 truckloads of gravel be delivered for their event. In the past, we have donated gravel to some events, so I kind of just put that as a summary under the report. And if there are any questions, please let me know. Thank you.
Any questions for CAO Henderson? I just have a question about the approximate monetary value of a truckload of gravel. Forgive my ignorance.
So I did ask that question, and I omitted to put that in the report, but it would be somewhere between 600 and 1,200
Per truckload
total.
or total for this request?
Total for the request.
Okay.
And then our intention would be to, of course, record this as an in-kind donation in our accounting records, and it would be reflected in that.
And that value that's our actual cost, and that would include the trucking.
So that, now that I think of it, it actually wouldn't include the trucking, but the trucking would actually be fairly limited in general because I think we have a pit pretty close to there.
For sure. Any other questions or discussion?
I'll move that Wheatland County supply and deliver up to 4 truckloads of gravel as an in-kind donation based on the written request from the Huzzar Lions Club and Huzzar Summer Days Committee.
Any questions or discussion on the motion? All in favor? Motion is carried. We'll move to agenda item 4.13.
Yes, good morning, Council. Again, Brian from administration. On page 86 is the Watch Clerk Funding Joint Advocacy Letter. So Council did make a motion for administration to draft a letter from the Reeve to the mayors of Rocky View County and the town of Strathmore, just requesting consideration by their councils of a joint advocacy strategy regarding the Watch Clerk funding to the province. So administration did go through this letter, and we it has been included on page 89. So there are some blanks that are in there as well. So administration understands that cabinet has not been formed yet, so we don't know who the Minister of Justice is, nor do we understand if that's exactly where it will be reporting to afterwards as well. So we just need to make sure that all of these things align for council or prior to sending this letter out. So this letter is in draft form, of course, and everything should be included in there. Our intention as well is to enclose the signed Watch Clerk agreement, which is currently out for circulation and approval from the other 2 participating municipalities. If there are any questions on the joint advocacy letter or suggested edits, please let me know. Thank you.
Any questions? Council's wishes?
I'll make the motion that council authorize the Reeve to sign the joint advocacy letter to the province of Alberta regarding the RCMP Watch Clerk funding and to direct administration to forward the letter to town of Strathmore and Rocky View County for their consideration.
Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. We'll move to agenda item 4.14.
Yes. Brian from administration again. On page 91 of your agenda package is just a invitation from the WHMB CAO regarding a joint meeting with the WHMB participating municipalities. So that invitation itself is on page 94. So administration's intention is to have mileage and per evening per diem for councils that participate or go to the meeting. If there are any questions, please let me know. Thank you.
Council's wishes.
Just clarification, is this an information session or a meeting where we're asked to participate? A meeting to me is there an agenda, that kind of stuff? To me, this seems like it's an information update, but.
I would classify it as an information sharing session. Yeah, I think it's in the spirit of collaboration this is the intent of it, is to just ensure that all the partners are kind of informed about where we are in the process. We've had different consulting companies involved, and so even for board members, this will be information that we haven't heard yet. So,
Oh, okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I have one question for council to consider. If we could, in our response, indicating we would accept the invitation, request that the meeting be recorded and be publicly available. My rationale would be that ratepayers then would also have access to the most up-to-date information on the potential project. I just think it's important that the public is aware, and I know we've had a lot of questions and engagement on this, and I think that it's always helpful, rather, especially because I don't sit on the board, it's helpful if I can point ratepayers to publicly available information.
I can certainly bring that forward.
I may even add it to the, I would move resolution 1 that council accept the Wheatland Housing Management Body meeting invitation as information, and in our response to the Wheatland Housing Management Body board, request that the meeting be recorded and be made publicly available. Any questions or discussion? So just a slight amendment to the recommended motion from administration. All in favor? Motion is carried. There's a second recommendation.
I'll move to ratify 1 evening per diem and mileage for the attendance of any Wheatland County councillor who wishes to attend the Wheatland Housing Management Body meeting on June 15th, 2023.
Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. We'll move to agenda item 4.21. Good morning.
Good morning. Tracy from administration. I'm just here to provide a few highlights from the May 2023 report to council. So one of the biggest highlights is that our tax assistant added 135 roll numbers to the TIP program. The benefit for our municipality is that we have a consistent monthly cash flow. And I'd like to thank our tax clerk for her hard work. Typically in the summer, we do 15 to 25 per month maximum. So it was a big job. And it's fantastic that we have more on our TIP program. On May 26th, we'll be providing privacy and FOIP training to staff. Currently, we have several managers attending about 3 full-day sessions for FOIP, which is very beneficial. There's always things to learn about FOIP. It's a very gray area, so always interesting. The development of Google Street View data collection program is underway, as I'm sure you're aware, and image data has been uploaded and currently showing publicly on Google. It's definitely worth having a look at. It's nice and clear and up to date, which is great. And we're working on the 2023 ownership map, and template is near completion. Under wastewater asset management, completed inventory counts and quantities based on asset class and material type for wastewater pipes. Started calculating estimated unit replacement costs for some of the wastewater assets. And as well, we have been posting videos and materials on our teams, just so that all staff have access to that corporate knowledge. And so again, if you want an update on asset management, it's a big project, but we can certainly do that for council as well. And those are the highlights. Any questions?
Any questions regarding the report? Just one question. With land titles and the mailing address changes, what's the timing like on that now? Or are people starting to get more timely?
I don't believe so. Okay. I believe there's still a long wait. So we have gone, I would say, above and beyond for advertising, and so we're doing the best we can. And as soon as we have mail returned, we're going out and searching for proper addressing and things like that. So we are doing the best that we can for sure.
One question. I've had a couple of ratepayers reach out just around, like, land titles is very specific in how you do the change of address request.
Very.
And in an unrelated meeting, the minister said that, and I can't remember the exact number, but it was 30% of requests that go to land titles have some error in them and they need to handle them twice, which contributes to like the length of time that it takes them to address land title requests.
Mm-hmm.
Would we be able to do some kind of draft with the exact like layout? I've helped a couple of ratepayers just fill it out because they're very, I know one had it returned because they just had done the legal land slightly differently than how land titles wants it. Could we do like Joe Smith with like a sample legal land? Yeah.
Absolutely.
I did search for one when I was I was just going to send it to the one ratepayer. And I couldn't find one online. I don't think, and if you do find one from land titles, that would be great too.
Okay.
I did mention that to the minister that might be helpful for them to provide. But even I know I was a little nervous quite some time ago when we had to put ours in. So
Yes, we can definitely look at that, and if we can find something or create an example, and we will likely ask that land titles look at it and
yeah,
approve
that would
it.
be great.
Yes, yeah, for
Perfect.
sure. Yeah.
Any other questions? Oh, I know there was one other. Do we have an approximate number of the mailing addresses that were changed by Canada Post? Do we have like an estimate of how many of those have been changed in our systems?
I'm sure we do. We could.
If you could bring that back in just
Sure.
next month. It's
Yep.
no rush. I'm just curious, like if we're very close, because I know we allowed people to register theirs like separately because it was taking so long,
Yes,
just for tax purposes. But I'm just curious how close we are, and if
absolutely.
we need to kind of just be reminding our residents too, because
This is the second year now that we've been advertising heavily address changes and land titles and the delay in the process. And
I think your communication has been excellent. It's been fulsome and like I see it frequently, so I appreciate that.
yep, you bet.
Any other questions or discussion? Motion to accept the report as information.
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor Laprise. Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. We'll move to agenda item 4.22.
Morning, Council. Joel from administration here. I just wanted to talk through 4.22. It's a request for the Reeve and CAO Henderson to be authorized by council to sign a letter directing our bank, or our financial institution, to open an additional bank account. So just a quick background on this. We've gotten a lot of requests from larger organizations, larger ratepayers and such, to make EFT payments for reasons on their own side. They don't want to join the TIPS program and whatnot. And so by opening a second account, it allows us to provide them banking information that would let them make those payments, but then it also protects our main bank account. And then as part of the letter the request is with our account to have them lock down the controls around that incoming account as much as technically possible. And so we just felt that this would provide another payment option and some flexibility for those organizations. Staff are available for any questions.
Excellent, thank you. Any questions? Council's wishes.
I'll move that council approve the Reeve and Chief Administration Officer sign a letter of direction to authorize Wheatland County's current bank provider to open a new account to receive payments through electronic funds transfer.
Thank you, Councillor Bigger. Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you for bringing this forward. I think it's great we're expanding the options for payment. We'll move to agenda item 4.23.
Good morning again. Tracy from administration. At the April 4th regular meeting of council, the following motion was made, that council direct administration to obtain quotes for code of conduct training for all of council to be provided back to council for their consideration. Being handed out is a list of quotes. If you would like to discuss the quotes, we should go in camera as per section 16, A and C, and actually B. However, I do have a recommendation on that list. The quotes I provided, we actually did that in December 2022, so I just used those quotes. I don't think they'll change drastically. I did contact our integrity commissioner and asked a quote, and that is part of what they provide is training for code of conduct. I
Council's
did
wishes.
provide some also possible training dates, and or we could just have a day where there is not meetings and have all of council come in.
I don't know what those days look like for folks. My only comment, July 11th is during Stampede, and there have been some networking opportunities for potential investors during Stampede. So I can make it work if that's what works for the majority, but my preference would be June 20th or July 4th. Does anybody wish to discuss the quotes? We could move into a closed session. Perhaps I'll try. What does June 20th look like for everybody?
We have that open house as well that day, so the schedule would have to be fairly light for the agenda if we want to, because it looks like we need a couple hours at least, right?
It could potentially work well if people have the full day. We could maybe even bring supper in and then move to the open house, if that worked for people. We could do like a working supper.
I think that'd work.
Well, let me float this. I will move that council approve, and would you like us to say the recommendation, if that's what I'm moving, or just,
Please.
or the actual name?
The actual name, please.
Okay. I would move that council approve that Kingsgate Legal provide code of conduct training to all of council on June 20th, 2023 at, does administration have a recommendation for a time if it were to follow council?
We can certainly try to keep the agenda light that day, so 1 o'clock or 12 o'clock we can even start.
We could start at 12 o'clock and we could invite them to join us for lunch, just sort of to get to know them.
Working
And then we could
lunch.
officially start at 1 p.m.
Sure.
or something.
Yep.
So let's say at 1 p.m. and then we could invite them to join us for lunch. And depending on how they would like to structure it, we could stay, have like a working supper as well, and then proceed to the open house.
Okay.
I'm sorry, it's a long day for everybody. Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. It's also highly efficient though, because less driving and all of that. So. Thanks, everybody. We'll move to agenda item 4.24.
Morning, Joel from Corporate Services again. This one, it stars donation comparatives. Staff just went and got some more information as I think it was a result of the May 9th meeting, the Public Presentation Committee meeting from STARS, where they had made some requests for contribution increase. And so what staff went and did some comparatives with some local counties to provide some information for council in terms of the per capita contribution rates. As you can see on the table, the majority of them are around the $2 per capita, which is what we're currently at. And yeah, staff are available for any questions.
Any questions? Council's wishes.
So I appreciate the more information that you've brought. I know I had put forward a motion that I withdrew. And it is good information to, I didn't really realize that we had already a budget number kind of scheduled for this year. So I would think that we should keep it as what we had budgeted. And maybe we could revisit at our next budget cycle to see if we wanted to do something differently. But so at this point, I'll just move that council accepts the STARS donation comparatives as information.
Any questions or discussion? I concur. I think this would be good to bring forward for our budget discussions for the next budget and consider the request at that time and leave it with what we have for now. I do get strong feedback from ratepayers of appreciation for the service that STARS provides, and I'm very grateful for the service that they provide. So any other questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. CAO Henderson, 11:30 for TSI, or?
Yeah, so it might be advantageous for council to go into camera now or at 11:10 to allow council time to review that report just prior to the presentation. So whatever council wants, one more presentation or go on camera now, whatever council feels like is a good idea.
Would council like to move into closed session, and then that would give some time to review the report prior to the consultant or the investigator presenting? I will move us into closed session. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Good afternoon. We'll call the meeting back to order. Prior to recessing for a lunch break, we did move out of closed session, and there are motions arising from the closed session. Council's wishes. I think administration emailed. I'm sorry, I'll just go in and look.
I just want to make sure that it's correct.
I think it was just an example of a previous motion.
So would the resolution number that's stated there be accurate?
Yeah, so I provided a screenshot of the outstanding motion that authorized
okay.
administration to procure the independent investigator. So that's CM 2022-11-46. And then I provided some sample resolutions of previous motions that have been passed by council. Thank you.
Thank you to administration for providing those.
I guess I'll make the motion. I move that council determines that in conjunction with the written report prepared by the investigation team based on CM 2022-11-46, that the complaint against Councillor Laursen be upheld.
Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Any further motions arising?
I'll make the motion that council determines in conjunction with the complaint upheld against Councillor Laursen, the following sanction be imposed in accordance with the county bylaw 2022-05, that Wheatland County Council have code of conduct training provide code of conduct training.
I think, was it going to require Councillor Laursen to attend?
Yes.
I think was what was.
Yeah.
discussed? So we have code of conduct training scheduled.
Yes. And if the participation in that training is attended to by Councillor Larson, that would be sufficient.
Shannon, would you mind just reading? No? So the first part of the previous motion, a sample motion, and then just that Wheatland County Council require Councillor Larson to attend code of conduct training?
Yeah.
Is that in the spirit of,
Absolutely, yes.
is that good, Shanna? You have clarity? Is all of council clear on the motion? Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. I just have one other motion for council consideration. Due to the ongoing challenging of code of conduct investigator credentials, I move that council direct administration to ask municipal affairs for clarification on municipal investigation requirements for the investigator. And then we'll just make sure that there's clarity for that if there's any future code of conduct complaints. Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. Any further motions arising from closed session? We'll move to agenda item 4.31.
Good afternoon, Council. Sherry Bars with Community Development Services to present the May department update, and it's found on page 108 of your agenda package. And I don't have anything additional to add at this time. I'm available for any questions you may have. Thank you.
Any questions regarding the report?
I had a quick question having to do with protective services, so I'm not sure if you're able to answer. I'll raise it and we'll see. I noticed that a lot of our incidents from our fire is having to do with medical assist. And I'm just curious if that has to do with still an ongoing ambulance issue, or is this stuff that a fire department would normally attend to?
Through the to Councillor Laprise, I cannot answer that as to why they're answering on those additional calls.
It has been a long-standing practice in municipalities, in Wheatland County specifically, where fire departments have opted to have training and do medical first response. Some of it is just due to like our vast geographic area and the low population density. And so even if EMS, like even historically when EMS was had more local capacity, we still had medical first response. Sometimes for some medical events, the timeliness of the response can be a life and death situation. So even prior to, this goes back quite a ways, but even prior to the fire departments doing it, we had medical first responders in the county that would provide that sort of urgent, immediate care. And now obviously our fire departments have increased training and equipment that can make a significant difference for those time sensitive emergencies. I don't know if like what EMS capacity, the impact that it's having, but just for that, some context around that, it did predate sort of the escalating EMS challenges. Yeah.
That was just my question really, is whether you hear that ambulance response times are improved and then you see this, and I just wondered if it was correlation or if it was kind of a different.
We do have that RMA resolution as well, because we do recognize, like the RMA membership supported advocacy due to the impact of the increasing demands on fire during like when there is those EMS capacity issues. Councillor Kester.
New wires here. I believe it's protocol when you call an ambulance, call 911. They ask you fire, ambulance, or police. You say ambulance, they push a button, it goes to AHS dispatch in the city. And they'll take down whatever they take down for their 911 call.
Mhm.
And they'll dispatch an ambulance. And the protocol is that they dispatch the fire, corresponding fire for first response in
Oh,
that
okay.
area.
Okay.
And that was part of the agreement way back when.
Okay.
They took it away from us, yeah.
Good information.
Doesn't always work that way, but
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think the agreements are voluntary, so you will see different service levels for medical first response across the province. Any other questions regarding the report?
I'll move that council accepts the May 2023 Community and Development Services Report as information.
Thank you, Councillor Laprise. Any other questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. I was reminded there was discussion about one other motion arising from the closed session. Councillor Laverson, did you wish to make a motion about the report?
Oh, yeah, I'll move that investigation report be made public as administration sees fit. Or however you want me to say on whatever the new code says.
In alignment with the
Yeah.
updated code of conduct bylaw? Any questions or discussion on the motion? All in favor? Motion is carried. We'll now move to agenda item 4.32.
Good afternoon, Council. Dave from Administration. The Community Events and Kind Services Report was the result of some discussion around an invitation by the Rocky River Lions Club for their Bolorama for sponsorship. Council asked Administration to prepare a report with the list of community events as well as some information around how we've dealt with these events in the past. So the report kind of outlines that, and I'm available for any questions.
Any questions?
I believe on page 116, some examples, we should include water trucks. That always seemed to be a big, for dust control on the tracks in the infield.
That may be captured in equipment for site preparation, but it could be for ongoing maintenance of the site as well. Like a little bit broader than that point for sure. Any other questions? Council's wishes, there's a suggested motion that administration has recommended.
I'll move that council direct administration to provide in-kind services for community events as determined and delegated by the chief administrative officer at their discretion.
Any questions or discussion?
I'm in support of the motion. I would just like to have some kind of information back to council as to what we actually do at some points. If it's in your report or whatever, that'd be sufficient, just so we can keep track of it.
Yeah, I like that. Even if it was done maybe quarterly or something, would that be onerous on administration?
Nope, not at all.
And then I wonder for work done in other municipalities, if we could track the monetary, like the in-kind value as well, just so that we can continue to have fulsome reporting on that. It's a great idea. Do you accept that as an addition to your motion?
Certainly.
Any other questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. I appreciated the information in the report and I appreciate the motion that was passed. I think it's excellent when we have capacity and that administration can use their discretion for that to support these events. I know it's almost priceless for some of the events because they may not have the capacity to do something like this. And when we already have the equipment and the trained operators, yeah, it really is a excellent contribution to those community events. So thank you, everybody. We'll move to agenda item 4.33.
Dave from Administration again. The report on page 119 of the agenda package is for the East Strathmore Solar Project Community Benefit Allocation recommendations. This year, the contribution from the East Strathmore Solar Project and Elemental Energy is prorated because they didn't have a full year of operation. So it was, for normal year it would be 20,000, but because it was prorated, it's $10,833.33. So representatives from Elemental Energy and administration went through all the applications, and the recommendations are in the table 1 of the report for the open allocation amounts, as well as the fixed allocation amounts are in resolution number 2 for WFCSSS, Carsland School and Wayland Crossing School. So I can available for any questions on this.
Thank you. Any questions? Council's wishes.
I'll move that council approves the 2023 East Strathmore Solar Project Elemental Energy Community Benefit Funding open allocation for $5,416.66 as recommended by Elemental Energy representatives and administration.
Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried.
I'll move that council approve 2023 East Strathmore Solar Project Elemental Energy Community Benefit Funding for the fixed allocation amounts to Wheatland Family and Community Support Services for $3,250, school education programs to Carsland School, $1,083.33, and Wheatland Crossing School at $1,083.33.
Thank you, Councillor Bigger. Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. And just on behalf of council, a thank you to East Strathmore Solar Project for these contributions to the community. I think it's an excellent example of how development in the community can have a significant impact beyond just the development and employment opportunities. So thank you to East Strathmore Solar Project, Elemental Energy. We'll move to agenda item 4.34.
Good afternoon, Council. Rachel Hanson-Beaton with administration, here to present a request for refund for building permit application 349-349-21-B0126. This building permit application was submitted on August 31st, 2021 and was approved on September 16th, 2021. On June 27th, 2022, Park Enterprises, our third-party contractor, informed by the owner that they wanted to cancel the permit as they would not start the project due to high construction costs. A safety codes officer completed an inspection to verify that the work had not been started on the property and the file was closed. On May 4th, 2023, the owner's representatives requested a refund from council, which can be found on page 127 of the council package. The county does not have a policy that allows for staff to issue refunds for building and safety code permits. Additionally, in accordance with Wheatland Policy 2.10, council must approve any refunds over $1,000. As such, the request is referred to council. The building permit application fee was $5,616. This included the $216 safety code levy, which was paid to the Safety Codes Council. Safety Codes Council levy is a fee collected at the municipality and remitted monthly to the Safety Codes Council. So these fees cannot be refunded without Wheatland County incurring a loss. As per our Safety Code service contract with Park Enterprises, Wheatland County receives 30% of the total application costs, and Park Enterprises receives the remaining 70%. Park Enterprises receives 50% of their 70% portion at the time of their application. This cost includes the plan review and issuing the permit. Park Enterprises receives the remaining 50% when the permit is closed due to the project completion or cancellation. Staff recommendation is to approve a refund of $3,510. This amount includes Wheatland County's portion of 30% of a total of $1,620 and Park Enterprises' second 50% portion that they collected when the file was closed. The total fees are $1,890, which they have confirmed they would reimburse to the county. Council's standard 3 responses are located on page 124 of the council package.
Any questions regarding the report? Council's wishes.
Make the motion that council approves the permit application refund for building permit 349-349-21-B0126 in the amount of $3,510.
Thank you, Deputy Reeve Clausen. Any questions or discussion on the motion? I just have one question. I appreciate the amount of detail presented in terms of like the monetary implications for the county. Could this set a precedent, and is this arduous for administration to administer, like in terms of like interacting with park enterprises and that type of thing? And does I can't remember if there was a county fee. Sorry, I meant to look. Like, are we accounting for the staff time? Because there's not really extenuating circumstances beyond like increased building costs from what I understood. And that's really a personal decision to not complete a project that you've applied for. Just thinking about the ongoing, like if this could potentially become more. I don't know how much that was off for.
Just for the last.
Okay, perfect.
I had the similar thinking just as I was reading it, that maybe we should be refunding a portion of Wheatland County's portion, half or 75% of it, because there was time spent to create this report. There's obviously time dealing with various parties. There is a cost associated to that. So I just wondered if we should, reduce it.
I like the idea of 50% of the 30%, like just to cover the administrative burden.
It would give them a total of 48% of their money back. So that's not insignificant. I think that would.
Then it's just still cost recovery for the county. Council's thoughts? Does anybody else have the same concern?
I can't imagine that this is that common of an occurrence, because usually once you're committed to building something, you're going to build it. I would guarantee there's more extenuating circumstances than just the cost of the building. So I was interested in the fact that if we give the money back as a refund, then Park Enterprise is going to give up their $1,800, which makes me wonder what they would do with
Only
that
for their
money.
the closing part.
Right, no, but because they haven't done anything with it. Like, it would have just an interesting way they said that, well, if you're going to give the money up, I guess we'll give the money back to you. So I found that interesting, but I've got no problem with this, because I don't think staff I don't think this is a very, very common occurrence. So I think if it's all of a sudden, and I just can't imagine, anytime you make that commitment to build, you put that building permit in place, I would assume that a high percentage of the time you are going to build. So I'm good with the 35-10.
And I guess there is the inherent deterrent, because even with the full cost recovery on Wheatland County's portion, it's still a substantial amount of money like already spent on the application. I'm comfortable with it. It just was a concern if it did become a more common occurrence. But there is a clear deterrent already in the cost involved. I'm comfortable leaving it with the resolution, and we can monitor if it does become more common. We could address it at that point. Any other questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. We'll move to agenda item 4.35.
Good afternoon, Council. Dave from Administration. On page 128 of your agenda package is a report regarding the Rosebud washrooms. This is a result of community members making inquiries through the area council and administration about improving the washroom facilities at Rosebud. So staff has prepared the follow-up report with some very preliminary estimates on some upgrades that could occur, and just information around possible upgrades if that's something that council wanted to consider. I'm available for any questions on this report.
Any questions regarding the report?
I have a question. Do we know, or do any of our other hamlets have public washroom facilities that we maintain or build?
Gleason does for the campground, the small campground area. They have a, it's like a pit style washroom facility there.
And the county maintains it?
Yes. And the other one would be, I guess, Severn Dam as well as two washroom facilities there.
To me, I feel like this is better Curb or East Strathmore Solar or Wheatland Wind. That maybe it should be more of a grant that they're looking to from other. That's just my thoughts on it.
Councillor Kester.
We currently have two Sani stations there, or what do you call them things? I don't know what the yearly upkeep is on them that are there presently on site.
So I don't have that information right handy at all, but yeah, there is definitely yearly upkeep on those.
Yeah, for sure. And they're going to be permanent. Last I heard, they'll expect to sell about 40,000 tickets per year per show. And they've been seeing an uptick in people visiting Rosebud. Could be as many as 60,000 coming for the various art shows, walks around town. And then there's a noticeable uptick in people just coming out for the day just because they heard of it. They're not actually partaking of any events. So there is, the show isn't open, there is no washrooms there except for these honey buckets, I guess we'll call them. And they come with a cost too. So over time, we'll easily be able to build, to put in a more efficient service. It's right on top of the water line and the sewer line's right there too. Probably have to put in a septic tank and a pump like everybody else. Being cost effective, I think putting one in would be the way to go. Plus for the convenience of it. I'm still grappling with the year-round one. I don't know what the difference is between the prefab building for 50,000 and the year-round one for 150. Is it the services to put heat in, or is it there a difference in the building itself?
The year-round one would be built differently to allow for heating and not, so it wouldn't freeze, the surfaces wouldn't freeze.
So would the prefab one be able to be upgraded in the future for year-round? I would hate to put something in, then next council come along and say, we could make it year-round because we're seeing.
They're like precast concrete, I believe, so it would be difficult to
the heat
to do that after the fact. So.
Not getting a lot of requests for washrooms in the winter time. It's more in the summertime when the visitors are out. And there's, if you're familiar where they are, they have a big gazebo there. People are coming out busloads and camping there for the day. It's getting to be quite an attraction. And as far as putting in a prefab pump out at 30,000 compared to one that's tied to services at 50,000, and a difference of $5,000 a year, that's only 4 years and it's paid for the services. But I would strongly recommend that we put in a prefab building tied to services. There is no stores in Rosebud that are open. There is no washrooms there, unless the show happens to be on. And I've gotten a few comments that people in town are actually getting stopped on the street and asked if they can use their washrooms in their house. Not that they mind, but still. Doesn't leave a very good, nah. People come to visit, washrooms are very important, yeah. So I'd be interested to hear anybody else's thoughts.
Councillor Bigger.
Yeah, I'm kind of with Shannon on this. Like, we have the curb for things just like this. They have a community association, I'm pretty sure, don't they? They could apply for this, for the 30 or 50, and put in for it. I think because I know we have public washrooms too, but they're tied to our Ag Society or the Ball Diamonds, but every community probably has public washrooms. Like larger communities, I guess.
My concern, I guess, is to do with the yearly their maintenance too. Like if you have I just could imagine every time toilet gets clogged or something like that, like the county has to run out there and I don't know. There's all kinds of issues with it, and I don't know. I'm not sure. I do feel like it should be funded through one of our grant programs
or like a more community, like not a Wheatland County washroom. It's an actual community, more pride in your community, pride in getting that
community-driven project.
Yes, exactly.
Kind of yeah.
I hear about that all the time. Yeah.
Any other questions or discussion? Yeah, and I would concur with Councillor Laprise and Councillor Bigger. I absolutely agree with you, Councillor Custer, how important public washrooms are. We do try and visit Rosebud quite frequently. There are a couple of shops. I know we did a little shopping. The show was on, but it was before the show. We have been there when shops have been open, like pre and post show. I know on days when there aren't shows, sometimes the shops don't open. The museum does have washrooms as well when it's open. I don't recall their hours offhand, but it's an amazing, I'm going to put a plug in. The museum's amazing. If anyone has a chance to go there, go visit. It really is an incredible museum. I would love to see, I think this would be an excellent project to come forward through our CURB program. And then even if the capital covered that, then if there was, concurrent discussion or future discussion around the maintenance of that and where there's capacity and that type of thing.
That's one of the issues now is the maintenance and cleaning. I know the county are helping out and that's greatly appreciated. The Hamlet of Rosebud is all volunteer work down there. They do a lot. They're running out of hands. The amount of public that are coming in there is 100 people live there, and there's 50,000 people. That's a lot of people you're looking after in a year.
Lots of opportunity for private enterprise too. When you have that many visitors, there are, tourism opportunities.
Yeah.
I think we are going to see growth there now that we have made the substantive investments in the utilities there and the servicing. That was somewhat of a limiting factor in Rosebud, and I do anticipate we'll see growth there. It's a beautiful community and the community spirit is incredibly strong there. Definitely appreciate that. And personally, I would be open to looking at continuing some of that maintenance. For me, it's that upfront capital. If for whatever reason it wasn't selected during some of those grant application processes, perhaps we could contemplate it in the future. Just mindful of also not wanting to take away or replace something that could potentially, I realize public washrooms are not going to be done by the private sector, but businesses, sometimes that is a reason people stop at a little shop or, there is the eateries in town and that type of thing. So
I don't know about Travel Alberta. Might have a grant. I'm sure that public washrooms is big on there when they're trying to promote an area. That's such an important thing that grants could be issued through there.
that's a great idea, Councillor Bigger. Perhaps administration or Councillor Kester could also just relay that idea. And I know our administration, even just at lunch today after the curb check presentations, there was a lot of expression of gratitude for our administrative team and just the collaborative work that's done with the county with a lot of our community organizations. It was very appreciated. So thank you.
So I have a question then. If they were to apply through CURB, would the county still be willing to help out with the maintenance?
I think that, like, personally, I'm open to that. It would need to come back to council once. I don't know how that works. Do we ever have CURB applications where there might be a county commitment following it? I'm trying to think of some.
Not that I'm aware of any.
But the fact that we're currently helping with the maintenance now, wouldn't that just grandfather in? I would think it would just continue.
And if they are tied into services, it may even be potentially less. I don't know enough about that, but
You won't be sending a pump out truck there and that expense is gone, right? I don't know what the expense is.
Yes, just through the reeve. Ultimately, council sets the service levels, and whatever council chooses to do with those service levels, up, down, more or less, it's up to council when they're trying to determine the set service levels for the communities.
What's there now is not free.
Yep.
Okay, I'll relay the message.
perhaps a motion to accept the report as information.
Also move.
Thank you, Councillor Laprise. Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. We'll move to agenda item 4.41.
Good afternoon, Council. Brad Bullock reporting on the Transportation and Agriculture Department report. Starting on page 133 of the agenda. So on the first page, it's a report on the water outage that happened at Cold Crescent in Carsland in May. So during the construction activities there was a water line that was hit, which turned off water services to that road. The repairs were completed on the same day, but the water needed to be treated for 24 hours after that to make sure it was sanitized. After which water was turned back on, but there was a boil water advisory in effect for a few days while we got the lab testing back on that water, and then it was turned back on and systems were restored. So it was an interruption there, and it was certainly an inconvenience for the community, and we administration worked to get that resolved as quickly as we could. On page 134, a report on some of the studies, investigations that administration is working on. So at the top is the West Side Servicing Study. So based on council's directions, administration is proceeding to prepare the request to the City of Calgary for in-principle approval for access to the city's potable water supply through the East Calgary Regional Water Line. So that's in progress. And then the next stage of this study is to begin to investigate some of the short-term and long-term planning stages and strategies for West Side Servicing based on the study and information that is already in hand. Administration is also putting together a municipal design standards manual update. So the purpose is to update our current standards so that they're in line with current codes and standards, and also to include additional details pertinent to the county. Street and shoulder sweeping has been completed throughout the county, and crews are nearing completion for pothole patching. The 2023 annual bridge inspections have also been completed. And the necessary non-urgent repair work for those will be planned for in 2024. And staff are currently working on, in 2023 here, the 2022 deficiency list items. The energy efficiency audit, which is being completed for Nameka Hall, Gleason Hall, Clooney Hall, and the Gleason Library. Most of that work has been completed, and administration is expecting a report in our hands this week. Gravel sales are scheduled to take place June 14th and 15th at the Goldsmith Pit near Clooney. And first round calcium applications have been completed for dust control. And the submission deadline for the second round is June 9th. On page 135 is a report from our agriculture and environment team. So at the top lists some statistics for the number of grain bags recycled this year. So already 279 bags have been hauled for recycling. The Wheatland Watershed Resiliency and Restoration Program opened for applications on May 15th. Information about that program and other programs can be found on the county website. And roadside mowing and spraying will commence in early June. It hasn't started yet, but we're expecting that to start in the next week or two. And then at the bottom of the page, there's a list of a couple of items, recent events that were put on or supported by the Agri and Environment group. And that concludes my report, and I'm here for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Kester and then Deputy Reeve Clausen.
I don't know where I've seen it, but is there a culvert on Township Road 264 east of to 35?
Through the Reeve, that's a very specific question. I don't, we can look into that, yeah.
I heard it was for replacement, but we can still drive on it. There's a lot of big trucks go over that road.
Okay.
It's just east of my place.
Okay, we can take a look at that.
I think that's the next item on our agenda. I think that's our next agenda item, following this one. That's where you thought.
Oh, it could be the bridge size culvert.
That's where I seen it.
Yes, thank you.
Perfect. Any other questions regarding the report? Deputy Reeve Clausen.
Hi, thank you. My question's on the municipal design standards manual update. I hope council gets updated on these, and because these updates can have huge cost implications in the future. And I know there's stuff that are tied to certain safety designs and stuff, which I have no problem. But if there's any kind of leeway to a higher standard or something, I think council should have some input on that. If you understand what I'm saying, like, as long as it's a safety thing, I don't have a problem with it. But if there's some kind of standard that is applicable or as staff want a higher standard, I'd like the council to see the reasons why, that kind of thing. Because I mean, these decisions can ripple effect down the line for decades for cost, right? So I'm thinking, say a hamlet, for example, like Redland, and we're trying to look at water standards, and all of a sudden we say, no, we have to have fire standards for those things, and we go to look at put systems in there in the future, and all of a sudden it's going to jump from a $400,000 project to a $4 million project. So those kind of things. So that's all. I think standards are great. I just would like to have some ongoing input into that if we could through committee of the whole or something like that, just to kind of, if that's appropriate.
Yeah, I think it's certainly appropriate, particular to when that's put together, to present it to council, at least in the committee of the whole, to start and get some feedback from council.
Great. Any other questions or discussion?
Just a question to administration on this Cole Crescent thing. Is there some ongoing review? Because I'd really question the contractor opening a hole on a Friday afternoon and on a non-emergency situation, putting all the people that live in the out of sorts because it doesn't need to be done, and then just leaving an open hole. This time they left an open hole, plus they hit a water line, right? Like, so when you guys doing your due diligence on contractors, do you look at this kind of stuff? Because that's a bonehead move.
Through the when we do complete projects, we do a review of the project and how it was executed, including the contractors and consultants that were used, and we go through that process and do that feedback. So things like that do come up as part of those reviews to review the performance of the contractors and consultants that we used on those projects.
Because the bottom line is we should be inconveniencing the ratepayers as little as possible. And I don't care how you slice this, even if there wouldn't have been a water line break, these residents on that particular area would have been inconvenienced for an extra 2 or 3 days that didn't need to be done. Like they could have come in and done it on Monday, you know, in the future, and then these people aren't fighting, the residents aren't fighting this hole, this gaping hole that doesn't need to be there for, you know, that's all I'm glad you review stuff and you'll take this into consideration. Thank you.
Councillor Laprise.
So I just wanted to say that I was happy to see this report came out actually from Protective Services, but it's a reminder about unsightly property having long grass and weeds, and that following June 1st, officers, if we are noticing unsightly properties, will be doing some hamlet mowing. So I just want to say thanks for sending this out, and I know the residents of Clooney will be watching for some mowing to happen in the near future. So anyways, just wanted to say thanks. I also wanted to say thank you, our ag service officer going to the school at Sacred Heart. That's a great program, and I think that's just a great thing that students in our schools know a little bit about the ag industry and the business that most of us are in. And so yeah, I'm glad, and I hope that it also goes out to Wheatland Crossing. I'm sure you would at some point. Tried. Okay, next year. But yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, and I would echo Councillor Laprise's comments. I noted that as well, and I think it's great that Sacred Heart was open to having us present in their classroom. And I think there have been engagement opportunities explored with other schools and school divisions, but that they maybe just hadn't been able to be scheduled. But I did appreciate that those students had that opportunity. I also just wanted to say, commend the work on the egg recycling. We have been front runners in that space in the province, and we continue to be leaders. I think when I saw some provincial numbers, Wheatland County is far beyond most municipalities in Alberta in terms of a lot of our egg programming. So thank you to you and your team for that as well. I also just had a question circling back to the Cole Crescent. I'm just wondering, I'd like to commend our administration on the communication that occurred during those challenges. There was very good, up-to-date. I know I saw it at times on social media, or it was sent to me. I really appreciated that, and I know the residents would appreciate that as well, especially the timeliness. I did notice online some frustration. And I'm wondering about a future conversation, and it doesn't have to be today, but around expectation management in terms of emergencies. I did find it a little bit, I shouldn't even say that. Emergency preparedness week had just occurred a couple of weeks, I think, prior to the waterline break. And so we had already just recently done public communication around, being prepared for 48 hours independent or 72 hours and things like that. And I think there's a balance between having personal responsibility for being prepared, even with the disruption of critical services. And I think we do messaging around that. But just to maybe a council conversation around what our role and responsibilities are during an outage of a critical service like water. And then if we just had some public messaging prepared for that, and maybe even if in advance we're setting some expectation, like for example, from my understanding, we do not have a potable water truck. So it's not like we're not a large enough municipality where we have that available, where we could just bring it into the community to set up a station like a larger municipality might be able to do that. I did read that, and thank you to whoever on the team facilitated that, but I believe bottled water was taken into the community and made available for folks. And I saw incredible community spirit where other community members were opening up homes, and I think volunteers went and opened up the community center for showers and, you know, things like that. I did feel bad for Councillor Bigger. People were quite angry, and I know in stressful situations, I've been angry too before in a stressful situation. But even just if we have some kind of sort of what our service level expectations are so that we can mitigate any misunderstanding around that if a significant event occurs. I don't know if council, maybe at a committee of the whole, we could discuss that. I'm seeing lots of head shaking. Maybe there's consensus. Perhaps administration could just add that to a future committee of the whole meeting. Deputy Reeve Clausen.
I want to say thank you to the staff as well that were involved in this. I know they had to work on the weekend and it was a contractor mistake, and our staff definitely stepped up to the plate to make sure that things were done right. And I know it was there was a lot of hours put in that really shouldn't have needed to be put in on especially a long weekend. And yeah, like Councillor Reichert reminded me about that yeah, this started on a Friday and you know, the long weekend, and it disrupted a lot of people's weekends, and it really shouldn't have happened that way. So, and of course, people that are living at their house, same thing, you know. So hopefully the contractor has learned, and we've learned from it as well.
Any other questions or comments regarding the report?
I'll move that council accepts the May 2023 Transportation and Agricultural Department report as information.
Thank you, Councillor Reichert. Any questions or further discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. We'll move to agenda item 4.42.
Good afternoon, Council. Cody Zimmerman with administration, presenting the RFD for the replacement of bridge file 74391. I guess as Councillor Kester was already alluding to, so this pipe is on Township 264 and Range Road 235. Recent inspection by our bridge inspector that was performing our annual bridge file inspections flagged this culvert with a 1 rating. Basically, the floor is separating, which is causing that just to slowly compress, which is why it's not in a threat of immediate collapse on this pipe. So it will just over time just slowly squash down and plug off the waterway. So we are going to continue to monitor it on a weekly basis until we get some of these more immediate repairs resolved with it. There's some scour holes and things on the sides that we're going to fill in that have opened up. So we'll deal with that right away. And then the bridge inspector did recommend a 6-month frequency on the inspections going forward just to monitor it. So I have put together a table just kind of outlining projected costs for the replacement of this pipe and a proposed schedule. We're looking for $35,000 to be approved to begin preliminary engineering, as it does take up to a year to get the engineering and the environmental approvals and all that stuff done for these type of replacements. So that includes my report, and I'm here for any questions. Thank you.
Any questions regarding the report? Councillor Kester, if you can just turn your microphone on.
Is this a shared pipe with WID?
Through the chair, it is a WID spillway, but the way that it works is basically we cover all costs associated with crossing any of their system. Basically, WID was here first, so we paid across them, and that's kind of how it's lined up.
So what's the shared thing with the WID then? Is that for canal costs then, or?
I'm not sure what you're referencing, sorry.
I thought when some of the culverts are replaced in the county and they're WIDs, we provide the equipment and they provided the culvert, or is that, am I misinformed?
Through the chair, I know that was done in the past on some pipes where we paired together with them for certain things, and I think it was probably more related to urgency of their water delivery versus us needing to keep the road open. So I think there was a couple times over the years where we've paired on different initiatives like that, but it's not a typical like standard agreement that we have or anything like that.
So this isn't going to collapse?
Not imminently, no. It'll, like I said, it'll be a slow squash down over time and we'll eventually just block the waterway off. If we do get a surge of heavy rain or something like that, there is a definite concern that it could cause, faster deterioration of that pipe. So we will be monitoring it. And if it does happen, then we will have to close the road and look at doing some emergency works in that case. But things get a lot faster and easier if things start failing. So unfortunately.
So WID is aware of it? Because I think the major use of that is the water coming, they spill there.
Yeah, through the chair, they are aware. We've had discussions with them on it just so that we like to keep them apprised of anything to do with their system that we might be working on. So
it's not going to happen like the 263 when the province still had it. Playing for a whole year, and finally when we got a big hole in the road, oh, there's a hole there.
Well, we're hoping to avoid that and get working on it right away, and hopefully we can resolve it early next year at some point. So.
One saving grace, it's dry out, so it won't be as much hay hauling back and forth as used to, but those are big loads, some of them hay loads go down there.
Well, we have been thankful in a way for the dry spring because it is going to let us get this preliminary repairs done just to help it from deteriorating faster. So I guess if there's a silver lining there.
Okay.
Don't say that one too loud.
Any other questions regarding the report? Council's wishes.
I move the council approves the addition of capital budget with a budget of $35,000 within the 2023 fiscal year for the completion of preliminary engineering for the replacement of bridge file 74391 to be funded from the transportation bridge reserve or from the unrestricted reserve.
Thank you, Councillor Custer. Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. Let's move to agenda item 5.1. There's an exciting letter from Alberta Transportation and Economic Corridors, or whatever they will be named next, perhaps, who knows. The hamlet of Lyelta has been declared a hamlet, met the requirements. And as well, there is correspondence, a very nice thank you letter from the Drumheller Area Health Foundation regarding our recent donation. I don't think there's any action required, but perhaps a motion to accept for information.
I'll happily make that motion to accept as information. And thank you to staff for making the hamlet thing happen. It's been something that I wanted to, I've heard that question ever since I was elected, why we weren't, and we made it happen, and it makes a lot of people understand the community better. So thank you.
Excellent. Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. I'll move us into closed session for 2 agenda items under FOIP Section 16 and FOIP Section 17. We've just moved out of closed session. We have one motion arising.
I'll move that council not approve the developer's request to release $900,000 cash security currently held by the county.
Any questions or discussion on the motion? All in favor? Motion is carried. And that brings us to the conclusion of our agenda. Thank you, everybody. Meeting's adjourned.